Okay, so I had to leave. It's good to break up the videos into separate videos, and sometimes to get part of YouTube is to watch the end of the video, so please watch till the end. So, another explanation of the verse that we said before, and for those who didn't see the previous video, VaYigash love Yehuda v'yemer bi Adoni Adam abdecha davar be'oznei Adoni v'yichar abcha b'farei. It's another explanation of the verse in Genesis 44, and it says, and Judah approached him and he said, "Please, my master, may your servant please say a word in the ears of my master, and you should not be angry with your servant because you're like Pharaoh." So, we generally say there's nothing extra in Scripture. So why does it say, what is this meaning when it says, "Do not be angry with your servant"? So it seems that generally if people are disagreeing, that until that point you have to ask, don't be angry. We don't see them fighting. We see they're all being very respectful to each other. So Rashi says that he said that he was talking in a difficult way. He was talking in a harsh way. He was talking in a almost. Even though his words sound very respectful, but his tone was angry, and so that's why. So Rashi seemed to indicate this by noting that setting the tone of how they were speaking. You can see there. In any event, we can say in a simple meaning, this same question, all the commentators ask, what does this mean? You are like Pharaoh. That's hard to understand. So very humbly, the Kedushas Levi says that's an opinion that the meaning that Judah was trying to bring out on this was that Judah wanted to arouse the mercy of Joseph, that Joseph should have mercy on him and on Benjamin. This way he would understand and listen to his words that he's saying, because he didn't know this was Joseph. He didn't know who he was talking to. So that's why he became very emotional. Because our sages say that words that come from the heart enter the heart. So in order to get Joseph to understand, Judah had to actually express himself emotionally, not just put on a show of emotions, but actually feel the emotions, because the words that come from the heart enter the heart. So therefore, we don't see anything in this. If someone's talking to someone else, talking to his friend face to face, then his friend will accept what he says, his very sweet words, and he will recognize if he's being truthful. The thing was this case with Joseph, remember, the scripture tells us that there was a translator between them, an interpreter. And when you're talking to an interpreter, the other day, all the time you listen on the radio and you have different world leaders will be speaking, and they'll have an interpreter translating their words. So you might hear the actual person speaking in their native tongue, and you hear their emotions. You never hear emotions in the words of an interpreter. So it takes away from the impact that it makes when you're hearing it translated. And everybody can understand this. So therefore, we see that the fact that there was an interpreter between Joseph and his brothers made it necessary to convey the emotions. And that's why Judah sought to speak to Joseph directly without an interpreter. However, that wasn't the custom at the time, to speak directly to a king in your own language, because it's possible that the king doesn't know your language and you're revealing that the king is ignorant of another language, which you would expect. If someone's a world leader, he should be fluent in various languages, but most aren't. And so therefore, it shows that this leader is lacking something. And so it's a bit of an insult. Even if he is familiar with the language, he might not be so fluent, and it also demonstrates that. So that's why we see the scripture says specifically that Judah says, "Please may your servant speak a word into the ear of my master," meaning directly and not through an interpreter. And so then it will go directly from his mouth to his ear without an interpreter. So then that might not be so respectful. So that's why he's asking, please don't be angry. Meaning, you shouldn't be angry that I want to talk directly without an interpreter. Because I'm really showing you respect, because it's obvious to me that you're a very intelligent person who knows all the 70 languages of the world, which we're saying poetically, as far as the number 70. Why? Because you're like Pharaoh, meaning you're just like your king, Pharaoh, who knows 70 languages. So therefore, it's for sure you're going to know our language, Hebrew. And that's what the Talmud says, that Gabriel actually came and taught Joseph all 70 languages. And also taught the Pharaoh all 70 languages. And even though Pharaoh didn't know Hebrew, he didn't know the holy language, Lashon HaKodesh, when it's the original biblical Hebrew, that's what I mean when we say Lashon HaKodesh, not what they call today. So he was embarrassed from this, because the king should know all the languages. So this really answers all the questions. It's a very simple, pshat answer. It's one of the nice things about the Kedushas Levi, is that sometimes he'll be homiletical, have a Hasidic teaching, and here he's answering a very simple, and like the last one we had was very Kabbalistic, and here we have a very simple teaching, that's not Kabbalistic, not anything, just very simple teaching what it means. Let's skip ahead a little bit. And have a few short teachings. Jacob saw coming to Canaan wagons that Joseph sent. So now he's going to talk. We had the first teaching in the previous video was Al Derech Sod. This teaching we just taught before was Al Derech Pshat, with a little bit. And the next teaching we're going to have is Al Derech Remez, hinting. So we had the Kabbalistic secret meaning, mystical meanings. We had the simple meanings. Now we're going to have the hinted meanings. And it's also a little bit of a drush. This is teaching Jacob that he shouldn't worry about exile. This is a very important thing, that exile has a purpose. The purpose is to bring the redemption, but some people, they want to skip over the exile and go right to the redemption, and that's not how it works. We have to wait for God. But exile leads to redemption. And even evil has a purpose, which is to bring about good. So So therefore he says that the word agola, agolos, which means wagons, is related to the word eagle, which means a circle, the circle of life. Sibu nikra davar eagle. One thing that causes something else is also a circle. Now we're getting into Kabbalistic terminology, that when you have simple mercies, that's a straight light. That comes right from God. You don't need, even though the circles are also from God, you don't need to take a wrong turn to get there. That's the simple, straight rachamim, the straight mercy. But sometimes one thing causes something else. That's called an eagle. That's called a circle. And so that's the level of what God, the message God was sending to Jacob was to say that things are not going to be so easy, but don't give up hope. Not always do we live in the direct light of God. Sometimes God gives us things in a roundabout way. And so that's what was going on here, and so that was the message that that Joseph was sending Jacob, and really that God was sending Jacob by having Joseph send these wagons. It shows us how everything in life can hint to something else, and it doesn't even have to be in the holy language of the Bible, we call Hebrew. Really, in all languages, we have to try to find a way to remind ourselves of holy things, of good things, things that give us inspiration, things that give us encouragement, things that give us joy, things that remind us about God. And so that's something we learn here, and that's a very Hasidic approach. We'll do one more little teaching, and then we'll go home. Maybe we'll do some more later. Mitzvah Hashem, I don't know what to do today. But there's one more short teaching here in Kedushas Levi. There's plenty more to go through. This is what we'll do. Oid Yosef ben Ichai. When he approached Jacob and tell him, he says, "Is my son Joseph still alive?" You can't believe it. But there's a deeper meaning. The amazing thing was not that Joseph was physically still alive, but that he was still Joseph, the son of Jacob, was still alive. In Egypt, of all places, Egypt, which was the most immoral country, although I'm sure there were plenty of immoral countries, but it was a country which had tremendous sexual immorality. And Joseph did not lose himself there. He didn't learn from them. He stayed who he was. It's hard to be on that level these days in America. A lot of people, it's very difficult. But Yosef Tzaddik was able to do it. And certain people are able to do it. And we have to look up to them. And we should assume other people are good people. We should assume everybody's a good person, even though we live in a difficult situation. And so Yosef, he remained a saint even in Egypt, and he didn't learn from them. The main purpose of the influence that God sends down through all the worlds into this world is for the sake of God's people, and through that, and from God's people, it spreads to the world. The rest of the world, who are pagan, who don't follow God, just get the leftovers. And that's how they live. That's the meaning of the verse. My son Joseph is still alive. Meaning Joseph, who is he working for? He's working, meaning God sent the blessing down to his people. And that comes, and whatever's left over gets the rest of the world. Because we don't need that much. And so, but Yosef was in Egypt. He was working for the leftovers. He was working for pagans. And yet, even though he was drawing his sustenance from that which was left over, he's still alive. Even though he was by these leftovers, the Hainu Oid, that's what is still, meaning which is a term of a leftover. Oid, leftovers is what's left, what's, who chai b'kedusha. Despite that, he was still alive, meaning he was still holy. And we have to pray to God that maybe someday we can do tshuva and reach some level of holiness. Until then, keep trying to get back on. Maybe you want to hear another teaching. The next one says, another two will do. Jacob, it says, that Jacob brought sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. Medrash has many different explanations on this, and Nachmanides also. It seems that, and it seems like we can see a little bit from the Ramban, from Nachmanides, that Jacob really didn't want to leave the Holy Land and go to Egypt. But he saw he had no choice, so he had to go. The sages say that Jacob really didn't have to go to Egypt, but he went because God made him go, even though on his own merits he shouldn't have had to go, but God had a plan to force him to go, for God's plan, to bring blessings to them and so forth. So that's why he tried to attach himself to the attributes of his father Isaac, because Abraham also went to Egypt, but Isaac never went to Egypt. God told Isaac, don't go down to Egypt. So he wanted to be like his father Isaac and not go to Egypt, and that's why he brought sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. Another explanation of this, according to what the sages say, in the Talmud and Tractate Shabbos says, bringing from Isaiah, Ki Avraham lo yadanu, that Abraham doesn't know us, and Israel can't save us, only God can save us. And that verse skips over Isaac. Meaning it mentions Abraham and Jacob, and it skips Isaac. So that means that Yitzchak Avinu, Isaac, our great patriarch, was a defense lawyer for the Jewish people, like the Kedushas Levi. Or the Kedushas Levi was like Yitzchak Avinu. And so his name Levi Yitzchak. Perhaps. And so, just as it will be when Mashiach comes, so too it was during the exile in Egypt. That from heaven, Isaac was and will be saying good things about the Jewish people, about his children, about the world, in order that we should be saved, that God should have mercy on us. So that's why Jacob, specifically when he's bringing sacrifices to God, he invoked his father Isaac as who would be a good defense attorney before God on his behalf and on behalf of all his children and all of us. Thank you for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe, and see more videos. You can click on other videos around, and hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much. Please feel free to make comments below. We can discuss this. We're very happy to further discussions, and also to have suggestions what other videos you'd like to see. All right, God bless you.